الحمد لله وكفى وسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الصفا والمروة من شعائر الله فمن حج البيت أو اعتمر فلا جناح عليه أن يطوف بهما ومن تطوع خيرا فإن الله شاكر عليم صدق الله العظيم. Respected elders, dear brothers and sisters, coming to ayat number 158 of Surat al-Baqarah, the rabat and connection of this ayah on the previous ayat is that in the previous ayat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentioned the various ways that He will test us in this dunya, in this world. This dunya, this world is darul bala or ibtila. It is the world of tests and being tested. The various kinds of tests that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will test us in this dunya. And again, there are 5 categories and ways that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will test us. The test of fear and hunger, shortage of wealth, lives, and crops or fruits. These are the various types of tests or categories of tests that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will test us human beings with. The successful are those who are as-sabirin, and the as-sabirin, the patient ones, those that persevere. Their main quality is that when they are tested or afflicted with any kind of affliction, calamity, they say, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. That becomes a means of solace for them. أُولَٰئِكَ عَلَيْهِمْ صَلَوَاتٌ مِّن رَبِّهِمْ وَرَحْمَةٌ. They are those who have blessings from their Rabb and the mercy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُهْتَدُونَ. And they are those who are rightly guided. So that was the discussion of the previous ayat. In this ayat number 158, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, إِنَّ الصَّفَا وَالْمَرْوَةَ مِنْ شَعَائِرِ اللَّهِ. Definitely, Safa and Marwa, they are from the sha'airillah, from the symbols of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَمَنْ حَجَّ الْبَيْتَ أَوْ اعْتَمَرَ. Whosoever does Hajj of the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or they do Umrah, فَلَا جُنَاحَ عَلَيْهِ أَن يَطَّوَّفَ بِهِمَا. There's nothing wrong with someone doing sa'i between Safa and Marwa, going between Safa and Marwa. أن يطوف بهما ومن تطوع خيرا فإن الله شاكر عليم. Whosoever voluntarily does good, then definitely Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He appreciates and He knows everything. And this ayat number 158, speaking about Safa and Marwa, there is a major incident that is related to Safa and Marwa. And that is also from the seerah of Ibrahim alayhi salam, from the qissa and story of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, that in his life, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tested him with many various kinds of tests, one of the greatest tests that Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, he was tested with, is that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestowed a son on him, his first child, Ismail alayhi salam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam to take his wife, Hajara radiyallahu anha, and his infant child, Ismail alayhi salam, take them to the barren desert, the open desert. And Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, he obeyed this command. They traveled for a very long time and they got to the open desert in a very particular place. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam to leave his family there and go, walk away, leave. Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, he left his family there. He left some dates, some water there, and he left. When he was walking away, his wife Hajara radiallahu anha, she said, "Oh Ibrahim, what are you doing? You're not a cruel man. Why are you just going to leave us here? Why?" And Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, being a human being also, going through emotion, he couldn't even respond back to her. The pain, it's not easy being tested. One is a person being tested by themselves, and one is when a person is tested with their family. It's a very, very difficult thing. So Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, he couldn't even say anything. So Hajara radiallahu anha, she said, that is this because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded you to leave us here? So Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, with his head, he just indicated that yes. So Hajara radiallahu anha said that if that is the case, then don't worry. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will take care of us. He will not abandon us. You can go. Don't worry. Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, he walked a distance and he went over the hills, and there he made dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is a lengthy dua mentioned in Surah Ibrahim. But when Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, he left, after some time, the dates finished and the water finished. So now Hajara radiallahu anha, she was left with a very, very difficult situation. On one side, she had the infant child. She had to take care of the child and protect the child from the various creatures of the desert. And at the same time, she also had to find some means to survive and have something to eat to also feed the child. So she was left in a place exactly between Safa and Marwa. And she was sitting there, she left the child, Ismail alayhi salam, there, and she went to the top of Mount Safa, and she looked around trying to find a way of seeking help. She came back to check on Ismail alayhi salam. Ismail alayhi salam was crying, infant child crying from hunger. So then Hajara radiallahu anha, she ran to Marwa and looked, trying to find some help. And back and forth between Safa and Marwa. She did this 7 times. At that time, Jibreel alayhi salam, he was sent and instructed to strike the ground at the place where Ismail alayhi salam's feet were. And that is when the water gushed out. This was the well of Zamzam. So Hajara radiallahu anha, she saw the water, she came and she picked up her infant child. And she drank from the water, and she was relaxed and calm, and she kind of told the water, Zamzam, Zamzam, which means stop, stop in its place. So the water did not just continuously turn into a river, but it kind of stayed in that area. There are creatures in the desert, particularly birds in the desert, that they look for water. And the Bedouins who travel the deserts, they look for these birds. If you find those birds, so you know that there's water in that area. So in that area, there was Bedouins, and they were looking around, and they saw the birds circling this area where the Zamzam was. And the Bedouins were talking to one another that we've been in that area so many times. There's no water there. The others were like, yes, but these birds, they don't lie. Anyhow, this group of Bedouins went there, and they saw Hajara radiallahu anha sitting there with the water, and Ismail holding Ismail alayhi salam. They asked, who are you? What are you doing here? So she said, this well is mine. You cannot have access to this without my permission. So they understood this. They had their own system. They're people of particular qualities. One of those major qualities is that they are very particular with their contracts. So they agreed to stay there. And with permission from Hajara radiallahu anha, they were able to use that well. Now, the nature of Bedouins that they move around, but they understood that this is the only water within so many, which is basically in the middle of the desert. They did not really have this sense to move around much. They decided to just settle there. So the tribe of Judham, and they settled in that place. What is unique about this incident is that when we speak about the test that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He'll test us with, in a very beautiful way, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala connects all of these 5 tests to the qissa and story of Safa and Marwa. As human beings, the thing that we fear most in this world is that any kind of harm that may reach our family, that is what we are most afraid of. Many of the decisions that we make as human beings. This is not limited to believers or limited to any group, but as human beings, it is in our fitrah, it is in our nature to always have a fear of anything harming those that we love, particularly our family. It is for that reason that we take precautions, every type of precaution that we can. So this was the first test Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, he was tested with. First, that fear of leaving his family in the middle of nowhere, the unknown. And again, Hajar radiallahu anha, what kind of fear she must have felt that now we're here, nobody is here. So this was the first test. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِّنَ الْخَوْفِ. We'll definitely test you with something of fear. The second, وَالْجُوعِ. When the dates ran out, the water ran out. So Ismail alayhi salam, infant child, crying from hunger. Hajar radiallahu anha herself, thirsty and hungry in the middle of the desert. Again, running between Safa and Marwa, increasing that thirst. Even now you go 7 times between Safa and Marwa, even a strong person, you can really understand and appreciate the kind of sacrifice that Hajar radiallahu anha had to give to go back and forth between Safa and Marwa 7 times. So that is ju' hunger. Naqsim min al-amwal, they have the shortage of wealth. There was no concept of even having anything, but when the dates were shorted and they ran out, water ran out. It was also at that time, Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, he had gone over the hill and he had already made dua. Part of that dua also, Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, in the dua, he was asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to send his blessings. The detailed dua is mentioned in Surah Ibrahim. فَجَعَلْ أَفْئِدَةً مِّنَ النَّاسِ تَهْوِي إِلَيْهِمْ وَارْزُقْهُم مِّنَ الثَّمَرَاتِ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَشْكُرُونَ. That, oh Allah, turn the hearts of the people to them, so that people may go to them and flock towards them and provide them sustenance from the fruits. So there was that fear that there would definitely be a shortage. It wasn't enough, it was few dates. Hardly 1 meal or 2 meals at most. While anfus, having a shortage of lives. Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, he left. It was kind of the support of the family. This is also the test there. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's also indirectly telling us believers that we should never think that we're running the world. Time will come where all of us have to leave this world also. Now how will we survive? So this was also a test for Hajar radiallahu anha and also for Ismail alayhi salam, but also a very, very great lesson for all of us mu'mineen and believers. And sometimes we believe that we are taking care of our families. Our families are surviving because of us. But how many cases and how many stories do we know of people who leave this world and their families are still there? We also have to take care of them. We have to take care of those families, the widows and the orphans. But this is also a test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the loss of life, loss of those around us. And again, with thamarat, the fruits, can be literally the fruits. When the dates ran out, the food ran out. It can also be with a metaphorical meaning that Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, when he was tested by leaving the fruits of his heart in the middle of a barren desert, his wife and his infant child. As human beings, we may tolerate many things. We may have patience on many things. If those conditions come to us, we'll bear them. But many a times when it comes to our family, we do not wish those kind of conditions to ever come upon our families. So this was the incident of Safa and Marwa, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's bringing up this discussion. In ayat number 158 of Safa and Marwa, that is the rabat and connection of this ayah with the previous ayat, as far as all 5 tests are concerned. In one incident, one major incident. If you take all the other tests, so yes, Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, he was tested with many, many difficult things in his life. But many of those tests were only one category of the 5 tests. There was either fear or hunger, or one or the other. Or there was loss of life, or loss of support, or loss of wealth, or even thamarat, So then Ibrahim alayhi salam, later he was instructed to even sacrifice his son. So again, a test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But this is the one incident where you can find all 5 of those tests in one time. Very, very, very difficult situation. And a very, very difficult test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And of course, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them the strength and they passed. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from there sent out even the manasik of Hajj and the manasik of Umrah. So want to even perform Umrah. So we go, we do tawaf of the Bayt, of Kaaba Baytullah. And then we do sa'i between Safa and Marwa. And this is Umrah. And obviously even in the Hajj, sometimes more than once we do this, tawaf and also sa'i between Safa and Marwa. So these are very, very symbolic in our deen. And these are symbolic, making us understand the importance of giving sacrifice for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Otherwise, it can become very easy for a person to lose heart and become hopeless. Because of the helpless situation, it becomes very easy for someone to become hopeless. But this was a very, very great sign for us. And this was also a kind of very great lesson for us regarding the resolve that Hajara radiallahu anha she had, the mother of Sayyidina Ismail alayhi salam. So this was the kind of incident. This is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in ayat number 158 brings the discussion of Safa and Marwa. Right after the discussion of the types of tests of this dunya, the categories of the various tests in this dunya, in this world. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, Inna Safa wal Marwa min sha'airillah. Definitely Safa and Marwa, they are from the sha'airillah. They're from the symbols of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There are many things that are from the symbols of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what is unique about the sha'airillah, the symbols of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that have been given to us, is that these sha'airillah, they are there as a means of very great lesson for us to learn many, many things. You have the Safa and Marwa, you have many other sha'airillah, many other symbols of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that are there. And all of these, one thing is very clear, is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tells us in Surah Al-Hajj, وَمَنْ يُعَظِّمْ شَعَائِرَ اللَّهِ فَإِنَّهَا مِنْ تَقْوَى الْقُلُوبِ. Whosoever honors and respects the sha'airullah, the symbols of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, utmost respect, فَإِنَّهَا مِنْ تَقْوَى الْقُلُوبِ, then that person is from those who have a pious heart or righteous heart. So it is a sign and a symbol of taqwa, piety, righteousness, for someone who has respect for the sha'airullah. This extends to many things in our deen. Safa and Marwa, also having utmost respect for the kalamullah and wahi. Obviously, foremost Quran, but also the adyan of the past. We don't know, even though those adyan may have been changed, and changes have come in even their books and revelations, there are still portions there that might be from the kalamullah that have not been changed. So that is why as Muslims, as believers, utmost respect for all of the revelations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Utmost respect for all of the Anbiya alayhim as-salam, prophets and messengers. A mu'min, a believer, is not someone, there's no permission given to us that we should ever disrespect any Nabi in any way, any prophet in any way. Utmost respect. And not just respect, this is also a quality of the heart. That inside our hearts we should not have any kind of enmity or animosity against any prophet or against any revelation. So condition of the heart, condition of the actions, regardless of what someone else might do. Also utmost respect for any deen that acknowledges the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even if they end up doing shirk and associating partners, we should not abuse any religion in any way. I want to make this very, very clear. We have no right to make a mockery of any deen in any way. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran, very clearly. وَلَا تَسُبُّوا الَّذِينَ يَدْعُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ فَيَسُبُّوا اللَّهَ عَدْوًا بِغَيْرِ عِلْمٍ. Do not curse or make a mockery or use any kind of abusive language for those who call on other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Do not ever make a mockery of the mushrikeen to their face. Don't make fun of their gods. Don't make fun of their deen in any way. Why? فَيَسُبُّ اللَّهَ عَدْوًا بِغَيْرِ عِلْمٍ. Because if you do this, you attack them and you attack their deen, they in return will na'udhu billah attack Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is also a means of disrespect, that we end up by our actions making a mockery of someone, they will turn around and make a mockery of our deen. We should never ever allow that to happen. We should not turn Islam into some kind of joke, that we go around abusing other people's religions, abusing or making fun of people's beliefs, because you'll definitely get a response, and the response will be very negative. And indirectly, it'll fall on us. We will be blamed for becoming a means of the deen being ridiculed, becoming a means of the deen of Islam, or na'udhu billah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or the Quran, or our Nabi in any way being ridiculed. We should not be like the foolish people. There are people in this world, now many disbelievers, many kuffar, who out of hatred, they do things that are very disrespectful. And we have this going on throughout the world. You have some kuffar, some disbelievers, they'll take the Quran and they'll rip it, they'll rip the pages. Some of them will burn the Quran, na'udhu billah. Some of them will make cartoons about our beloved Nabi Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, very derogatory cartoons, and so on and so forth. These actions they're doing. But we should not become like them. If they're doing it, leave them. And these are such people that if you give them importance, so they'll continue doing what they're doing. But if you leave them alone, so they'll forget about it. We should make dua for their hidayah, for their guidance. We should ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give them guidance, to give them some intellect, give them some common sense. The very people who do this, many a time they get shunned by the very religious communities they follow. There were some with their own religious communities, their own priests, their own whatever ministers they had, they disassociated themselves. They said, no, we don't want anything to do with this. We don't do this. So we should leave them to their actions. We should make dua for their hidayah. If they die, then we can ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to judge them accordingly. But other than that, we should ask for their hidayah and guidance. Look at how much the Quraysh and the Kuffar and disbelievers, what they did to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. When he was alive, how much did they do? And what was his response? He used to give them da'wah. He would make dua for their hidayah. He used to make effort. So this is also our responsibility to uphold that sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. If someone abuses us, abuses our deen, abuses those that we hold in respect, and we just make dua of hidayah for them. If we can have a respectful dialogue, then have a respectful dialogue. Otherwise, do not get involved in foolish dialogues with them. So this should be very clear. We should not be involved in the useless dialogues. And this is also from amongst the qualities of the Ibadur Rahman, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes it very clear that whenever they pass by laghu, وَإِذَا مَرُّوا بِاللَّغْوِ مَرُّوا كِرَامًا, whenever they pass by laghu, these kind of useless, vain discussions, this kind of useless discussions and arguments, marru kirama, they walk by very honorably. They keep their honor intact by not indulging in these kind of strange arguments. Rather, if there is a respectful dialogue and the person understands what is respect, so have a respectful dialogue, but that's it. This is also part of sha'airullah, the symbols of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that we uphold the honor and respect of our deen with proper and reasonable actions. We should not become emotional. We should not give ourselves to emotions lashing out, it's in strange ways, right? We're very, very moderate. Yes, there is a way to give da'wah also. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us very, very clearly, "Ud'u ila sabili rabbika bil hikmati wal maw'izati al hasana." Invite people to the path of your Lord with wisdom and beautiful advice, not with emotional arguments and emotional attacks. No, no, no. So be very, very careful how we act and how we react. All of this has been shown to us in the seerah, in the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. What the Quraysh didn't do. They made a mockery of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. They called him names. They called him all sorts of names. They tried to defame him. They did everything against him, even attacked him. They attacked the Sahaba radiallahu anhu. And even when Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam migrated from Makkah to Medina, the Quraysh didn't stop. They continued their assault. But what was the response of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam? Beautiful akhlaq, understanding, and giving da'wah, not succumbing to emotional outbursts. This is very, very important. So وَمَنْ يُعَظِّمْ شَعَائِرَ اللَّهِ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in Surah Al-Hajj, whosoever honors and respects the sha'a'irullah, the symbols of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, فَإِنَّهَا مِن تَقْوَى الْقُلُوبِ. So that person has a righteous heart. Amongst the sha'a'irullah is also the kalamullah, the Quran. We have to take care of this Quran, to learn the Quran, study the Quran, implement it into our lives, and also be very respectful to the Quran. Yes, the original Quran, kalam, is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No one can affect that. It is in the hearts of the mu'mineen, the huffaz, those who memorize the Quran. The Quran is in their hearts. But even the mushaf of the Quran, the book in which the Quran is written, we should be very, very careful with it. We should have utmost respect for it. Even in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands us believers, "La yamassuhu illa al-mutahharun." The Quran is so great that no one should touch it except the pure ones. Which means we are not even supposed to touch the mushaf of the Quran if we are not in a state of tahara and cleanliness. We should be in a state of complete tahara, complete cleanliness, in a state of wudu when we touch the mushaf of the Quran or touch any ayat of the Quran. So what is this? This is respect. We should not treat the Quran like we treat other books, just putting it on the ground or putting it anywhere just like that. No. This is kalamullah. This is what Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam has also told us. إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَرْفَعُ بِهَذَا الْكِتَابِ أَقْوَامًا وَيَضَعُ بِهِ آخَرِينَ. Definitely this Quran has elevated many, many nations and has also degraded and disgraced many people and many nations, many others. One of the sharh of this hadith, there are many, many explanations to this hadith. One of the explanations and sharh of this hadith is also taking care of the Quran, its literal, in the literal sense. The mushaf, the book in which the Quran is written. Any ayat of the Quran, make sure it is in a place where we are not in any way showing any kind of disrespect. The Quran should not be placed in a place where our feet will be pointing or in a place where directly we are showing any kind of disrespect to it. It can have very detrimental effect. You might say, oh, this is just a writing or this is just some plaque or something that we're hanging up in our house. It will have a profound impact. This is kalamullah. This is the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These are the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These are the ayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They have a very, very profound impact. How we treat them, they'll have a profound impact on our lives first. Should be very, 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 very careful. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us understanding and give all of us the tawfiq to practice His deen. وَمَا عَلَيْنَا إِلَّا الْبَلَاغِ. نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. عن أبي أمامة الباهلي رضي الله عنه قال: سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول: اقرأوا القرآن فإنه يأتي يوم القيامة شفيعا لأصحابه اقرأوا الزهراوين البقرة وسورة آل عمران فإنهما يأتيان يوم القيامة كأنهما غمامتان أو كأنهما غيايتان وكأنهما فرقان من طير صواف يحاجان عن أصحابهما اقرأوا سورة البقرة فإن أخذها بركة وتركها حسرة ولا يستطيعها البطلة. قال معاوية رضي الله عنه بلغني أن البطلة السحرة أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. رواه Muslim. This hadith is in Sahih Muslim. Sayyidina Abu Umama radiyallahu anhu, Sayyidina Abu Umama al-Bahili radiyallahu anhu, he narrates that I heard Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam saying, اقرأوا القرآن, read the Quran. فإنه يأتي يوم القيامة شفيعا لأصحابه, because this Quran on the day of judgment will become an intercessor for its companion. It's amazing how in this hadith and in many other hadith, the targheeb is given, the encouragement is given to read and recite the Quran. اقرأوا القرآن. Because sometimes we get so carried away that many a times we don't do the tilawat of the Quran. We sometimes only recite certain portions. And when sometimes we're asked why we only recite those portions, we don't recite the rest of the Quran, is many a times we come up with the counter argument that we only want to recite that portion which we understand the meaning or which we know. But what is amazing about the Quran is that to really know the tafseer of the Quran and really understand all of its meaning can take a lifetime. And sometimes this is what Shaitan will come and he'll bring this argument to us that why are you reading the Quran if you don't understand it? And with that, we get discouraged and we stop reading the Quran. We should not let Shaitan put these kind of thoughts in our mind that if we don't understand the Quran, so na'udhu billah, will not have benefit. The Quran is full of barakah, it is full of blessings. The Quran is a book of blessings. It is a book of mercy. And that is evident from even the ayat of the Quran. That is, وَهَذَا كِتَابٌ مُبَارَكٌ أَنزَلْنَا. This is a book that is full of blessings, and it blesses those that connect themselves with it. So we should not get carried away with that, okay, if I don't know the meaning, you will not benefit. No, definitely you will benefit. It's like even in this world, how many things we don't know, really understand, and yet we can benefit from them. How many of us know the exact ingredients of everything we're eating? Everything that we eat still benefits us. At least our hunger is gone. The same with our medications, mashallah, medications. We can hardly even read the name of some of these medicines. But we take them and there's benefit many a times. The same with many things that we use in our day-to-day. We don't even know what our cell phones are made out of. We don't know the internal components, but we know how to benefit. We take benefit from it. It benefits us. Our cell phones, our vehicles, so many other things that we use in our day-to-day lives. We don't know everything about it, but we know we can benefit from it. And we never come up with this thought or with this argument that, okay, unless I know everything about this phone, I'm not going to use it. We use it all the time. Or unless I know every ingredient of this particular thing I'm eating and everything, unless I know how to cook it, I'm not going to eat it. Nobody makes these arguments. But when it comes to the Quran, sometimes this argument comes. Yes, the Quran should be learned. The translation should be learned. The tafsir should be learned. The Quran should be implemented into our lives, definitely. There's no argument about that. I'm in no way advocating against it. We should definitely do that. But that should not stop us from doing the tilawat of the Quran, from doing the qira'ah of the Quran, from reciting the Quran. There should be two totally separate things. On one side, we should focus on just the qira'ah and the recitation of the Quran on a daily basis, whatever time is easy for us. What we have found is many of our elders, they've made it a point to recite the Quran in the Fajr time, either before Fajr, after Fajr, the morning time. And they have taken that from the ayah in Surah Isra or Bani Israel, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about this. Inna Quran al-Fajr kana mashhuda, definitely the Quran at the Fajr time. And there's a witness. So they recite the Quran, they've kind of made it a habit. They used to recite half juz, one juz, some recite 3 juz. They have a habit of completing the Quran multiple times in a month. That's kind of been passed on through our elders, what we have seen. The least we can do is also try to implement that into our life. And that should be one separate system. Studying the Quran with meaning, translation, and tafseer, and implementing into our lives, that should be a separate system where we take time out and sit with our scholars, sit with our ulama, our akabir mashayikh, and really learn the Quran from them. And learn how to implement it into our lives from them. Because trying to learn the tafseer and translation by ourselves is very, very difficult. Even Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he was given the tafseer of the Quran by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. ثُمَّ إِنَّ عَلَيْنَا بَيَانَ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took that responsibility of teaching even the tafseer of the Quran to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Which makes it clear that we do not have the capacity to do that on our own. It's important that we have scholars and we go to those ulama, go to our scholars, go to our mashayikh and study the Quran with them. That should be a separate system in our life. As far as reading the Quran, we should learn to read the Quran if we do not know. Learn from the ulama, learn from our scholars how to read the Quran, and we should spend time reading the Quran. The Quran has its own sweetness when you recite it. And that's not a sweetness that can be described in words. It affects the soul. And especially if you recite the whole Quran. If you're reciting one portion or some portions, so it is, you only get that much. But going through the whole Quran, it's an amazing experience. It has a whole different taste, a whole different effect. A very profound effect. Especially if it is done regularly. A very, very profound effect. And has a profound effect on the spiritual life of a person, on the purifying effect that Quran has. There was a story of a boy. He went to his grandfather. This is one of those back home countries. I believe it was in Africa. So the grandfather told the boy, take this bucket, fill it up from the river and bring the water. Now in that bucket, it was a bucket that was used to water crops. For those who are familiar with farming, it's not exactly a bucket or a basket, but it has holes on the side. So when you fill up the water with that bucket, you walk through the rows of the crops and the bucket is spilling the water on the crops, on the grains and whatever has been planted. So the water comes out of that bucket. The bucket is not made to hold water. The bucket is made so that the water comes out of the bucket slowly to water the crops. It used to be an old system. So the boy looked at the bucket. He didn't say anything. The bucket was old. It was dirty. He didn't say anything. So he went and he took the bucket to the river, filled it up and came back. By the time he got back to his grandfather, all the water had been spilled. All the water was out. So the boy kind of looked at his grandfather, looked at the bucket. He was like, The grandfather said, do it again. Go bring me water. So the boy went, filled it up a second time. This time he ran back as quickly as he could. Again, there was no water in the bucket. The grandfather looked at him and said, go do it again. So the boy on the third time was getting a little frustrated. Anyway, he went, he filled it up, he came back as quickly as he could. But again, there was no water in the bucket. And he looked at the bucket and he looked at his grandfather. His grandfather said, go bring me water. The boy didn't know what to do. Anyway, he went, filled it up again a fourth time and brought it. By the time he got back, there was no water again. He looked at his grandfather. His grandfather said, bring me water. The boy said, really? Look at the bucket. You're asking me to do the impossible. How am I going to keep the water in this bucket? So grandfather said, look at the bucket. The boy looked at the bucket. He said, do you notice any difference? The boy said, yeah, before the bucket was very dirty, now it's clean. So grandfather said, similarly, be very, very careful with your thoughts and your words of other people, and always carry good thoughts, and even read the Quran. He said, when you read the Quran, even if the Quran doesn't stay with you, the watering effect of the Quran will purify you. So sometimes it's not the bucket that has to carry the water, but the water has to go through the bucket to clean the bucket. Similarly, the Quran has to go through us, has to go inside our hearts. Even if we don't memorize it, it'll still purify us, have a profound impact on our souls. It'll have a profound impact on our hearts, but we have to recite the whole thing, and we have to do it on a regular basis, regularly. It cannot be once in a while. It has to be on a regular basis. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us understanding and give all of us the tawfiq to practice His deen. وَمَا عَلَيْنَا إِلَّا الْبَلَاغُ.